Good evening, viewers. Welcome to Friday Night Face-Off. Peter Kivazu in the studios. An interesting day, definitely. Always a Friday night. I have a full city. I have Charles Romshana.
The Almighty God is great.
Richard Waguma and David Pulko. Welcome, Richard.
It's always good to be here, you know.
And David.
Good evening, viewers.
The other man used to say Karamoja Toya.
Toya.
And what would that mean? All of us would always
Let them
respond.
be there. Let them be there. Say kind of a good
All
wish.
of us would always respond. He would say, all Ugandans, A up to Z, habari gani, and then he would go to Karamoja and say, Karamoja Toya.
And then he said, he told me, I used to work with him at Radio Uganda, and he said when he says I should say Mata.
Whatever that means.
Whatever that means. So I would
In
just
my
say
language,
Mata.
it means milk.
Yeah, okay.
You know, those words are very interesting.
And I told you I worked with Rumshan also at Radio
I
Uganda.
was a news
Watch
reader.
away.
I worked with
I
Rumshan.
was a news reader. You know, they always want to identify with someone.
Yeah.
So there is a Boo Kenya. So Boo and Kenya.
You leave Bukeja alone. And viewers, of course, thanks a lot for a lot of the feedback that comes through the show. I will use a specific one because it is an old man that gave the feedback somewhere in Barara. He was Charles Romshana's teacher. If I remember the name right, I think he's Bamuturaki or very close to that.
Okay.
He is retired. And he is extremely disappointed with Charles Romshana. Not about the content of what he says, but with all the investment of teaching language and whatever to him, Charles Romshana cannot distinguish between elections and erections. Charles Romshana, your teacher asked me to tell you that the word is elections,
Maguma Richard
not
talks of
erections.
Context. When you were at Katonga, you remember that time when they handled the SJ's ladies
Yes.
going to Konjiri, the way what they did to them, that is called erections. Our erections are moving towards erections.
And I remember the teacher very well, with his glasses, very thorough.
The old man is disappointed that you never learned. Mzaiva Mturachi, the message has been delivered. If your students are terrible, we may take it on you. And viewers, of course, there are a lot of people right now seated in Munyonyo at the hotel in Munyonyo, dressed in yellow, welcoming His Excellency, the President. They are singers. Sometimes they call themselves musicians, but most of them are singers. They are seated in, and they are receiving the president, and they are making a commitment to campaign for him. It is called Tubonga Now, something like that. And I was waiting for Genokale Kaihura. I was really praying for Genokale Kaihura and waiting that he goes and stops this activity that is taking place before the nominations. These people must be breaking the law, and Kaihura must stop them. I'm still expecting that the police shall move somewhere today in the night, and they will break that assembly that has been collected in Munyonyo. Viewers, that is where a subject of discussion is. I know that the Inspector General of Police was irate, angry, mad at the media this week. Why do they cover the police brutalizing people? They should not. And of course, they paid us back in really good currency. On Saturday, when the Chiza Besige team was stopped for the first time, it is called Nkonya or something like Nkoni, it's on Masakambara Road, a monitor journalist was beaten more than Honorable Paulo Mwiru. You see, Paul Mwiru was the standard measure of beating. And Paul was beaten in the glaring eyes of the camera. The monitor journalist was beaten for covering the beating. And the anger of the Inspector General of Police was not with those that beat, it is with those that covered. And of course, like Waguma, he talked of context. Contextualizing the pictures, Where do you start from? Where do you end? Of course, there were 2 videos of that, and I'll bring you to speed. One of them circulated by the Uganda police that started very close to the end, and the other that the media had and used that started very close to the beginning and didn't show a bit of the end. Both of them, depending on where you saw it from, but if you see the whole length, of course you understand what happened. I have listened to commentary and questions about this. But subsequent to that, the women of the FDC and a collection of other civil society women collected themselves at Katonga Road. That used to be Chapaka Ruhanga's office.
It still is.
It is now Kiza Besige's office.
No, it's Chapa's.
The property is Chapa's, the office is Besige's.
He still does business there.
Okay.
It's a Refaka.
So collected there, and they set off for Parliament, draped in very beautiful clothes, if I could have those pictures. They were dressed to go to meet the Speaker of Parliament. You call it suka? In my language, suka is the one we sleep on the bed. In some places, it is the one women put on. Ours is busuti and gomesi. Yes, and suka and all those clothes. The police stopped them and offered to drive them in a bus so that they get delivered to the Speaker of Parliament in a bus, in the police bus. They refused. They said they wanted to walk. They did not seek transport. The police blocked them, forced them back into Katonga Road offices, locked them up until they were later, I find it pathetic, they had to be eased out, rescued by the United Nations Human Rights, what is it called? United Nations Human Rights High Commission. They came with cars to rescue them. I thought it is one of those things that I always think the police could get this smarter. 30 women, I would put 30 men, escort them to Parliament. Let them walk. Katonga Road to Parliament is barely a kilometer. Walk them there and life goes on. I think police goofed on this. But, well, they did their bit. Poor guys, I saw them washed away by the rain, the policemen. And I kept thinking, poor guy, if this guy slapped me, would I really blame him after being washed by this rain through the day? He's drenched kabisa. When you come and really pose your camera in front of him and he's marked you, even when it is painful, sometimes it is understandable that they did it, that they would do it. That went. The next day, actually that very night, they encircled Kiza Besige's home because Kiza Besige was going to attend the opening of the FDC office in Bweyogerere and then continue to another office that was supposed to open in Jinja and then address a rally in Iganga. He was encircled, same as my member of parliament, Ibrahim Semujunganda. Ibrahim Semujunganda was picked from inside his fence. From the pictures I saw, his coats were ripped. He took a few slaps. They can't really be very many. He took a few slaps, was bundled onto a pickup, and taken around on a country tour of the police stations. Dr. Kiza Besige, the same story. He walked out of his house and said it wasn't a prison. He was also bundled into a pickup. Mark the preposition. Semuju was bundled onto a pickup and Kiza Besige into, and they took Besige around the police stations. What was interesting for me as we start this was the end of it. Semuju was charged. While Semuju was charged, of course that is the older picture of Besige arrested earlier during the walk to work days. My producer chooses an interesting one. While Besige, Semuju was charged with allegedly disobeying lawful orders and immediately given a non-cash bail, Dr. Besige was granted a police bond that he did not seek, that he did not sign for. He refused to sign for it at one police station. They called one of his lawyers and said, please sign, and the lawyer said, I do not have instructions to do so. They moved him from that police to Kasangati, where they got my friend Elias Lukwago, asked him to sign on behalf of Vesige, and Lukwago indeed also said he didn't have instructions. So Vesige receives one of those other interesting bonds, like he received the, what was the other one called, the bail that Katusi gave? Was it Katusi or Ogola? Ogola gave him the interim bail that has never been revoked. The interim is still continuing, though the case was dismissed. This time he was also given a bond that he did not request for. Said, you chukua, whether you want or not. Richard, I want to start with you. I want a contextualization of this. The reason I started with Mr. Museveni in Munyonyo is very clear. Whatever language you call it, Yoweri Museveni is doing his campaigns. Today he received Bukenya in Katomi and said among the good people of the NRM is Professor Gilbert Balibaseka Bukenya. He's a true blood of the movement because his parents were in the bush. But Besigye came in 1983, very late, so he never quite imbibed the spirit of the revolution. Mbabazi stayed in Nairobi eating sausages, but because they had a shortage of educated people, they had to give him, and he became big-headed, and now they are sorting out his big-headedness. That Museveni is running a campaign. That Museveni is receiving musicians now and campaigning. He was in my village where I live, and he donated about 300, 400 million to welding boys and $1 million shillings to a woman doing chai. That Museveni is campaigning. His competition must not campaign. And if they dare, the hand of the law, the long arm of the law, shall enforce that with power. Richard, bring me to speed. This brutalization that the police does not want us to cover, these campaigns that the police stops but fails to stop the others, except, of course, if breaking news comes that they've stopped Munyonyo.
It's a tough one. You've spoken introductory remarks for a quarter of an hour. You really are a heart man. You must be grieving. Yoweri Museveni is campaigning. The others must not. The country is on fire, breaking up. It's exploding and imploding. 15 minutes of what I would comfortably say is it cannot be described as a near pro or even a near balanced Museveni assessment. But that's my view. But since it's been too many issues and too long, I would just maybe touch one issue.
And I really want the context. That is why when I was waiting for Baguma, he said Baguma will put even the elections and the elections in context.
What I told the man is, it has been your wife.
the brutality by anyone, parent on the child, wife on a husband, by word or by action, by an institution on another institution or individuals, is difficult to condone. So it's really ought to be condemned. And so that I do condemn. Particularly when it is coming from those. That's why I was saying I gave an example of a parent and a child those who would ordinarily do otherwise. So the other thing is, I think one of the things is, I think, the nature of the contestation of power. I think that's one of the issues. The contestation has been here for not less than 2 decades. The players, some are different, but the players are generally the same. And the issues that are raised are also reasonably similar. The methods too I don't think have been very different. In fact, when I hear some people express surprise at these politicians moving from one side to the other, I am really wondering what's new, what's really new for all the years. These politicians, these political players move from one side to the other depending on whatever. So this is going to happen again, even in this time, and that can be expected. The other thing is the capacity of the institutions like the police to handle some of the situations that do emerge. And you see, capacity is to do with a lot of things, starting with the mindset, going to the skills, going to the equipment, so what are the capacities for example, crowd control? But what are the capacities for hostile crowd control? What is the training? What is the equipment? And these are some of the things that you find. But also, what is the mindset? You also have to deal with that. I was recalling that I was, I think, 10 years in 1979. And when the war broke out, we ran from Barara. We all scattered and we went to the village. Now, one time we were preparing to have lunch, and we had a serious shortage of food. So we would have one meal, lunch at 4 p.m., and they would cook. They would boil maize and put in beans. That was
It's a delicacy in
one
Kenya.
meal.
It's
In
githeri.
Tanzania, when I went to visit as a UN guest, that's what they brought. But here it was certainly a famine. They said that some armed men, some soldiers were coming. And they said, oh, okay, all the women, you must scatter into the bush. You must go hide. And the women, all the females, ran. But after a little bit, a few minutes, my dad said, but I think the men should also run. Because these armed men certainly would run from them. Whoever would be armed would just disappear. If they come and they find this male-only society, they would smell something. So we should scatter. Now, for me, at 10, my crisis was scattering and leaving this boiled maize and boiled beans. And that was the context of the armed men, the people in uniform, and how we would react to them. We have moved a bit that now we actually move to take them on. And for me, we need to celebrate that. However, we need to move to the level that when we go, we have gained so much that we don't scatter from them, we go to take them on. And we should take them on. Because I think we have legitimate reasons. When we have legitimate reasons, we should take them on. I also think that when we take them on, the way they respond to us should be appropriate. I think this, to put it mildly, was very inappropriate. I am not sure that it is going to stop now, because I don't think we have had the reskilling, the retooling, the mind management that is needed. And I also think that there is growing confidence among those ones who take on the people in uniform and the things that they do and they don't agree with. I think there is growing confidence that you can take them on and you will get some success, you will get some achievement. Because certainly there has been some achievement in the reaction, in the push, you were talking about the human rights vehicles. When you understand the diplomatic systems, of course, that also has its challenges. And I think there are also things that are going to happen in that direction. Because when you have a force reacting inappropriately, you don't so react inappropriately. It also has its consequences. But that's another diplomatic process that will happen. But for me,
Richard,
I think that
Richard,
when
you raised something very fundamental here.
Yes.
About the capacity of the police. I have said...
And other institutions.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I'll deal with the police specifically this time. I have said previously that there are moments when I think I do not want to shoot at the men, and I use the word shoot deliberately, the men and women deployed on the streets. I was with policemen at an by-election. I don't want to say
That
election.
word.
It has been your word.
That word.
At a by-election in Butambala. And a number of them I would bump into, possibly I know, possibly know me. And when I met them near Haji Chigongo's house, Bulangiti in Butambala, they were about to serve their lunch. And I asked the officer there, hey, Bwana, can I join your lunch? And he was very welcoming, by the way, very courteous, and said, please join our lunch. Then he looked at me and went to the car, picked out a tin of canned beef, actually gave me 2 of them, and a few packets of biscuits, and said, you will have this, you cannot eat this other food. And, well, I thanked him.
Was it expired?
No. It was very good food, and it was in very good stead. It was really out of a very generous heart. Now, my keen interest was not on what I was receiving. It was on what the other officers and men, the other men were receiving. They had a block of posho that had gone around the district and was called. And the campaign agents, or the different agents of the campaigners, were on the other side being served warm food in very unhygienic conditions, kavera. But they were being served warm food. Here was the security that was to watch over them, served cold beans and cold posho. And I expect these people to be very warm to you and treat you very well. You are eating warm food, you are eating very well. They are eating cold beans, and their commandants have a tin of beef somewhere. They can even spare a tin for chivazo. And I was thinking, do we actually treat these guys right? That is one. Do we train them? We have been at this job for 30 years. President Museveni said we had a colonial police when he came, if you recall, and he needed to disband it. And I want to bet, if the last policemen that were 30 years when President Museveni came, 30 years later, I doubt we have very many men that are 60 years old. Therefore, Obote's police has been practically eased out. This is Yoweri Kaguta Museveni's police. The oldest of them are Yoyas Baguma and Charles. They are the ones that are in command positions. What became of these officers that we went to school with? That we are asking of them, have they been trained right? Hasn't 30 years been enough to train them perfectly? Hasn't 30 years been good enough to equip them with riot gear that they will use? Isn't 30 years good enough for them to understand that if a woman, whatever her motives are, refuses to be arrested, you can actually handcuff her, hands behind her back, like they do everywhere elsewhere in the world, and take her when she's handcuffed, and she wouldn't fight with cuffs on her hands? Isn't 30 years good enough for that? Or are they actually doing what the Otafiles were doing in the 70s? Fighting the regime, deliberately, but quietly.
No, you know, you actually raise very interesting and very rhetorical questions. Even the way you ask them, sometimes the answers are obvious. But you see, the journalists over the 30 whatever years they have been training and have been practicing, are they doing a good job? Are we in our media houses doing the ethical
Well, when
things?
I look at copy, what we call copy in the press, I would tell you they've moved over quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. One can also argue that some people in the police have moved over quite a bit. But you see, I talked about tooling. You see, tooling is not about, it's like tooling in the media. It's not about the camera, that you have a very good camera. If you have a very good camera, and me and you know, and you don't know how to white balance, however good the camera is, you cannot get a sharp picture for the viewer. It's the same. You see, touring is about the food. It's about the conditions. They affect your delivery. And that's what precisely I'm talking about. Has that, how far? But it's the public service. You know, and those are the questions that I said that must be, all the other negativities cannot be condoned. They must be, in my view, condemned. Whoever it is that is the driver and is behind those. And for me, as a society, and I keep saying this, that as a society, we've really, oftentimes been in reverse gear.
Richard,
Because you know why?
I need to pause you.
Yeah.
I need to pause you, but there is something very important that you don't deal with. The political power play in this. Because these police of men and women that we went to school with, because these are not your tall Mteso that was recruited because he was an Itesot and he was taller than others.
The political power play is critical. You know
the
why?
political power play in this police. This is a political police
why,
force.
You know why it is? Yes, because the police force has been political. In the colonial days, in the post-colonial days, and when I ask, and I asked even the other time, that whoever the political player is, what is that major difference that you would like to point out? And those are the questions that that are fundamental. And that's why I keep asking for where we are in the media. And you see,
Richard, there was a time in this country when if the special force was deployed in a village, like you were talking about you running away from Bara, if the special force was deployed in a village, people would run away.
We did run.
If the police came, people would mimic them and say, this is how they speak. They wouldn't run away.
Yeah, but it is the special force of what? And it is the special force to do what? You see, so
the police wasn't always that rotten.
The police wasn't even there in many of
David
those
Pulko.
instances.
David Pulko. I need to hear you. You see, there is the romanticization, and I know I got Baguma into a very comfortable zone by looking at the facilitation, looking at the tooling, looking at the finishes. But that is the romance of it. The reality is we have deployed the police to do political work. How far do you go? When is the cutoff point? What happens to you, the political players?
There's a crisis in the country where it's the police senior officers who are behaving like adolescents, like they're 16-year-olds.
Isn't that actually supposed to be insulting?
Excited, yes, because that's what they are. Why the excitement? You must police the country. You must be calm. We're approaching a very heated period where temperatures are rising. So we need senior officers to be calm and behave like, you know, even at the highest of provocations. You must behave responsibly and be cool and be calm. Don't send these trigger-happy young people to, because at the end of the day, these are citizens. The relationship between citizens and the police, even for information, even for the well-being of the force, even in terms of civil-military relations, there are better ways of handling. You can still do what they are doing, but in a very, look at the case of those women. If 30 women are walking from Katonga to Parliament, our police has done a commendable job. 3 million in Namugongo. Matters Day. 3 million.
No. Don't give us. There is no way they can have 3 million in Namugongo.
Even
but
if it's
go
2
on.
million. But
It could be 500,000
I
at
hear
most.
you, but they have done.
Yes, they do a
That
good
before.
job.
By doing what?
They do
When-
a very good job.
No.
Yes.
Even
They are
if
protected by Mother Mary.
so even if they go to, even if our citizens are going for a football match in
Nambole.
the police have done a good job. Even if it is a procession in town.
So what happens to that
Like, for
police
example,
that
this-
comes to Nambole and we are comfortable with
Yes.
it? When
And then
does
fails-
it become
and
the
then
brutal
fails,
hunters?
and then fails to take these 30 women along that short distance to Kadaga to present their memorandum. And then you find that the same police is escorting Odang Oto with a coffin, presumably of one of the candidates, And the police is there shamelessly. Senior officers, captains, they are there.
And
On
they are
camera.
in Mbale protecting,
So-
what is the fellow?
Now-
Your friend Mulongo
The choice,
and the Minister of Energy.
yeah, all these
playing
Irene
Kadodi
Muloney
on the
and
streets.
others, you know, yes, when you are demonizing a mama and so forth, when you are spreading hate, our police is there escorting them comfortably, not tear gas. Now, that police, for me, I'm on this show saying, should things go wrong, is one of my quotable quotes. It is the police, it is the judiciary, and it is electoral commission. Fortunately, all of them have the law in their hands. But as we are going into close to an election period, the temperatures are rising. The patient is sick. Is it a virus? Is it a bacteria? Why is the temperature of baby Uganda rising at this point in time? The diagnosis and so forth. But why I'm blaming the senior officers of police is that they are not exercising their role that the Constitution puts. They must take full responsibility. They must take full charge. But unfortunately, what they are what they are deploying, the senior officers, of course, are in their comfort zone. For them, life is Christmas. They don't live in the barracks. These ones with the pips and whatever here. Their life is Christmas. And for them, they don't go through what the ordinary policeman is going through. And so they are detached. So they are they are making the police force to be a militia of NRM party. So NRM is the only party in Uganda which has got a militia in UPDF, a militia in police, now militia officially of crime preventers. So the only political party in Uganda, because it is fused, the way it is being policing work, it's actually in favor of one party. And this breeds problems for the country. When you become one-sided, when you usurp the people's police force, they are paid from consolidated fund. The parliament expropriates money. They are both that uniform. Now, when they use this equipment bought by the taxpayer, when they use actually indiscriminate use of force, look at those kids in Jinja crying, reaching out for water. Who tear gas their school? What crime did the kids commit? You know, that's just because a mama is visiting town. And is that a good reason for our police? Where were the senior police officers? Even just to come and apologize to the parents, even to come to the school. So, in my view, the senior police officers are not doing their job. I think they have absconded from duty, and I think they need to be charged. Because where are you when police is going overboard? When police is not implementing the law? When the police is not operating within the law?
That those men deployed on the streets are actually not working within the orders.
Of
the
course.
police receives orders. And that man, Esiraje Bakaleke, deployed wherever he is, Pua Bakaleke is implementing an order as instructed.
An illegitimate order, now they want to say it is a lawful order. Because anything which is going against the Constitution is illegitimate. Now, people are being charged for disobeying lawful orders. How can an order which is against the Constitution, which is affecting Chapter 4 of our Constitution, how can it be legitimate? Now, what I'm saying is that police officers have been to more senior schools for training, higher courses. They know what a police force is in a democracy. Why do they choose not even to tell the political bosses that what you're asking us to do is not acceptable within the Constitution?
Isn't that supposed to be mutiny?
It's not. For you to tell, I used to tell the president. Yes,
I know why you are where you are now.
No, I know, but I would say, although this is technically feasible, but may not be politically desirable, or this one conflicts with the Constitution. And you point out, and The president used to go with reason where there was reason. But these days, either they fear to tell him, or has he become a monster that he no longer does not listen?
Charles.
So what is happening with senior officers who must take responsibility and exercise restraint?
Charles, I'm going to take a break and then come back with Charles. And sometimes I think, and I have said this about another institution, possibly these officers are actually so traumatized themselves by what is going on that they will do anything. They will be deployed and they will do anything, because I know, and I've seen this with my eyes, when Chiza Besigye was returning from Nairobi after his after the attempt on his life in Wandegea by Arinaitwe. When he returned from Nairobi, I think it was the time the president was swearing in. Now, part of the crowds that surged onto the streets were actually invited onto the streets by the police. What the police would do is it would lob tear gas into the homes so that the safer area to be was on Entebbe Road, not within the countries. So sometimes I think, is it possible that actually we are seeing a mutineering police without knowing that they are actually in a mutiny? Don't go away.